management or something. I love that. Getting over to D actions, which is dissemination of results and communication. This is the minimum that you would have to go for. The LIFE program sets out a number of activities that are necessary to have. I will not go into detail too much. I think you know what it means, all of it. You need notice boards near your demonstration site so that the public can come and read what you're doing. You need a layman's report. This is an activity that is carried out in the middle of the project and that describes the objectives, measures, and results in popular terms. It's basically a little brochure which explains how far you have gotten in the project so far. You also need that. So the information and awareness raising mainly targets the public, and technical dissemination to transfer results and networking mainly targets academia, similar organizations, and target groups for application. Yeah, you can see what's included there, but this is the absolute minimum. But if you want, as we have said, excuse me, one of the cornerstones or one of the parts of this trinity of a LIFE project is the exploitation part, which includes, which is covered by D. So we will look more into detail how you can strengthen your project by promoting replication and transferability as a concept in your LIFE project. And you need to ask yourself a number of questions to clearly make it possible for the evaluator to understand who you're or what you want to spread and how and to whom and so on. So I've tried to make 4 steps on how you could think about it. And where also you can see a reference to where this needs to be explained in the application for each of the different questions. But first of all, replication potential. Replication is a quite abstract expression, I would say. Replication, of course, basically means that someone else is using parts of your solution and apply it at home. It's not harder than that. And replication potential then is like, then you have to look into the environmental problem again. And as we have said before, who else in the European Union or in my region has the same environmental problem? In other words, for whom could my solution be interesting? Also, if other organizations or regions have a similar problem, have they already solved it? Are there solutions in place? If there are they actually efficient, or is it anything? Is the solution that we propose, is it more efficient, resource or energy efficient, for example, than the already available solutions, than the state-of-the-art solutions? And also, is our technology, methodology, or concept that we are trying to develop, is that applicable to the other cases? For example, to the neighboring region, can we use it there, or is it so that they are lacking, or that maybe they have a different type of nature? For example, coastal adaptation measures is a good example. All the different coast types require very different coastal adaptation measures. So for example, even if the Dutch people have tried every measure possible in the entire world in the Netherlands to try to save their country from being flooded, it's not necessarily so that you can take a solution from the Netherlands, even if they have sandy beaches and so on, and apply it in Nida. It's possibly so that Nida requires a totally different setup. This is what I mean. And always, you should be clear and first of all explain the local level. What can you do on the local level? How is the replication potential on the local level? Then the national level. Neighboring regions, for example, this is quite easily accessible information, and therefore you should start by that. And then finally the EU level, which is a little bit harder to explain. And this is also why it's good to have a university partner, because they usually have read a lot about different similar actions that go on. Sometimes they're part of other EU-funded projects. So I advert this to at least have a discussion with a university partner when you start a project. Secondly, and very important to the LIFE program, identify the suitable target groups. And of course, the broad public and the citizens always need to be targeted in one or another way. Stakeholders and NGOs, again, the local, well, the people locally that are working with your problem, so that you don't get, so you don't have problem during the implementation phase with that someone gets angry over what you're doing because you didn't ask them in advance. Experts in the field, this could be university or, well, private research partners in different ways. Could also be consulting companies. Sweco is sometimes participating or coordinating projects that are interesting to us and have a quite large innovation budget for that. So I think it's likely that other similar consulting companies have that too. Similar organizations to your own. If you're a municipality, obviously you would like to target other municipalities because you probably develop a solution that is suitable for municipalities, as well as other sectors. It could be that if we are back to a wastewater treatment plant, you have a quite high phosphorus load in the incoming water, and you want to use this phosphorus to make some kind of fertilizer, natural fertilizer, and spread on the fields around. Obviously, you would have to target also the farmers, the agricultural sector, and perhaps also the food producers, because the food producers decide very much what you're allowed to put on the fields if they're going to buy the grains and the barley and so on to produce bread and porridge. So if we now know the target groups, we will be able to bring the strategy a bit further. And then we need to define the different means of dissemination and take-up. And I think this is the most important thing it's the explicitly most important thing for the LIFE program, to go global, basically, or at least go European-wide and target organizations that could make use of our solutions. And they want broad dissemination of the results and broad take-up. Even if we're in Lithuania, they think it's reasonable that the Spanish organization might want to put up, bring up this solution. So we shouldn't not only focus on our neighboring countries, but all of Europe if you want a true transnationality in your project. Yes, and they explicitly write in the applicant's guide that the transfer of actions shall outline very clearly how they can be applied but adapted into a new context. Complicated, yes, it's very complicated to, when you're trying to focus on your own project, to adapt your own solutions into a new context. We'll go into a bit more detail on what exactly you would think that they mean with this. And then finally, inform the public or inform about the course of the project or project results. This is mainly locally and regionally targeted or aimed. Education, awareness, and inspiration are the things that you need to install. For example, if you are having a nature and biodiversity project and you create a new wetland, you would probably want to bring the local school kids to the wetland on an excursion or a little field experiment, for example, to educate them on why you are establishing or investing so much money in these wetlands. And they will understand all the positive, positive results of having a wetland, for example. It can also raise awareness to school children or regular people that are living nearby that well, for example, it could be to change their behaviors in terms of what they're flushing into the toilet, because if they go to the new wetland or the wetlands that are established, perhaps they can see that there is a lot of plastics that they have to take up there, and they have a small exhibition of plastics that they have found in the water that is flowing into the wetlands. That's of course a bad thing. So raise awareness of the local environmental problem, as well as inspire others. This could be, for example, that the French entrepreneur Gerard is coming to Lithuania somewhere on vacation with his family, and he visits this wetland, and he realizes, whoa, this is amazing. This is what I should do at home. Then he would probably need to start working for some kind of public organization to establish this wetland. But anyway, it should be inspiring also for fostering similar projects, both locally and internationally. And we'll go into different actions that you can also, that we would suggest, or that are possible under the terms of the actions. See, I have a new question. I will see if I can answer that briefly. If project is regional, we can clearly define replication possibilities all over the country in other regions. Is it okay to show replication on national level? There are interests from foreign countries, but there are some product differences in different environmental requirements. Yeah, of course. Yeah. It's sufficiently strong to have replication potential on the national level. As I understand, you also have a strong replication potential internationally. But of course, I think it's only a positive thing that there are certain differences, especially in environmental requirements. If you include an action into the replication activities, which maybe, for example, that you're arranging a workshop abroad in another country to discuss the different, or exactly to kind of map the different environmental requirements that are needed to implement the solution in the other country. This would be very interesting, and it would be a strong replication activity if you include the right players, for example, a national authority in that country. At least on the paper. Okay. So it's quite clearly stated in the application guide that you have to go beyond meetings, and it's also very clear in life evaluations. If you get an evaluation and you only put in meetings, the evaluator is pretty harsh on this field. So go beyond arranging meetings, and every activity needs to have a concrete added value that helps to adapt the solution to a new context, for example. There is nothing wrong with workshops, for example. I mean, this is also kind of meeting, as long as every workshop has a clear objective, or you have to clarify this very clear in your activity description. The why is very important for every workshop. And also you need to motivate somehow the number of workshops. You cannot arrange 20 workshops for no reason. I've tried to include that in the past to get more, get a higher performance indicator. That doesn't work. It's a really bad idea. Some recommendations then. First of all, as we have said, reach out broadly, publish articles both in professional magazines and academic journals. This way, you can, in a reliable way, target very broad groups and different sectors as well. I think that it's hard to say that any of either the business sector or academia is more important. They're both as important, and also professional magazines are usually at least read by experts at public organizations. Sorry. One thing that is quite popular is to establish some sort of reference manual or handbook to facilitate future practical applications. Basically, you include an activity where you make a logbook of your activity and you write down the lessons learned both the positive experiences and the negative experiences. And you by the end of the project, you can actually have a little handbook on your hand that you can translate into English and then give possible replication partners. So within 5 years after the project, you would maybe be able to show 1 or 2 replications because they could follow this lovely guide and not repeat your mistakes. It's important to involve, and I have put this cursively, because involve actively different experts. Might that be from companies or from universities? As we have said, one example in the monitoring actions or in the dissemination through the seminars in their network, you want, how to explain it? Well, farmers, there's a Swedish saying basically that farmers are speaking in farmers' language. And it's usually hard to come to a network of people, especially if you're not from their sector or from their region, perhaps, or country, and try to convince them that you have a great solution. On the other hand, if you include an expert or someone who's considered an expert in a certain field and already has a network, and you convince this person by involving him in the project that this is a good idea, you have a larger chance of actually replicate your solution in them, because he will go back to his friends and say, well, look at these Lithuanians that are building a wetland here. Not a very bad idea after all. And he might actually be able to convince them instead of that you are doing it forever. So smart to involve an expert, for example, university. It's quite smart to involve public authorities also, especially if they're regulating a certain sector or otherwise impact it through like regional strategies, for example, that the municipalities are obliged or at least recommended to follow. If you can create a national or regional-wide framework for implementation of certain activities, it will be easier to encourage local actors to actually pick up your solutions. So lobbying work, if you want to call it that, is not a bad idea in this case. You have to call it something else. So workshops with public authorities to explain the environmental problem in detail and how you solve it and why this is an amazing idea and why they should put this into legislation. And then perhaps they will do so. We have seen that work in the past. It's also not, it's quite hard to get public authorities on board a project more than perhaps in the reference group. But at least if you can put them into the reference group, this is not a bad idea to get some input from them. Then, yeah, also very useful, also for the evaluation, is to coordinate your project activities with other similar ongoing EU-funded projects to make sure that you get some sort of synergies, especially, of course, that you fish in the knowledge from their project, but also that you will be able to provide, you will perhaps take their solution, bring it one step further, and then you will bring some experience to them. So if possible, also advantage with having a university on board that helps you cooperate and coordinate activities with other projects. Also, if it's possible, which makes the evaluator and overall Brussels very happy, if you can in some way lend borrow or lend equipment or solutions to other organizations to allow at least small-scale real-time tests. For example, this could be done through a roadshow. This is not very visible in the LIFE program maybe, but for example, we have been coordinating a number of biogas projects also in Lithuania actually, and then it has been possible to do roadshows with these biogas buses that were bought within the project and let them roll on the streets of Kaunas, for example, for a couple of weeks. This is a very practical activity to foster the replication potential. And then back to the workshops. I've just made some examples on how you could design the workshops to shed sufficient light on innovation and policy development. And it's very much what I've said. You want multiple seminars on the same theme to make it possible to exchange information two ways. You ask for input in the beginning, and you follow up by providing input to them by the end of the project. Should always actively invite professional magazines to your site, your work site or workshop, to make it possible for them to write good informed articles, not only to let the university rewrite their academic articles into something more popular. You should hold workshops. Yeah, this is a quite good recommendation. They all are, but this is specifically good, and which might not feel realistic. You should hold workshops near to the target group to make it easy for them to come and provide input. So it's possible to hold workshops abroad. For example, our Swedish LIFE project that we are planning plans to have a number of workshops in Germany as well as perhaps in Switzerland, to get close to the target group, to first of all get their input and then provide our concept further for application. Then, of course, you need to keep in mind the CO2 costs of the project. Perhaps it's better to hold webinars, but usually when you want efficient replication effect, you usually need a person to stand there, meat and blood, to explain to farmers what's happening, basically. And then the workshop with authorities, I've already gone into that. And then you should package the whole thing as an overall strategy. Make a lovely figure with a lot of the directions, basically. You show streams and processes that are somehow supplementing and complementing each other, to make it look like a very held together, strong communication and dissemination strategy. We have a question, which I will read. 7, legislation. If there are certain legislation issues that may be improved based on the monitoring results of the project, should we mention that proposals for national authorities will be developed, as that is the matter of national authorities? Can we call that a transferability? Yes, yeah, I think so. Yeah, that would be useful. You could hold a workshop. You could first of all prepare some kind of at least proposals on what is wrong with their legislation, and perhaps also proposals on how to change it to the better, and then arrange a workshop at their headquarters or at their ministry, for example, and explain this to them. If that's realistic to carry out in reality, it's all about realism. You should really try to keep constructive in the dialogue with the national authorities in this field. But yes, I would call that transferability, to increase the level of transferability, and at least long term, since you don't know, you don't have any control over the legislative processes. In the long term, it's also increasing the potential of replication in that country. So yes, yeah, very relevant. Super interesting, actually. I'd like to hear more about your project. We jump over to slide 51. And we will then speak a bit more about the communication actions towards the public and major stakeholders, including local stakeholders and NGOs. Again, this is just examples. I was looking into one of the nature and biodiversity projects that we have carried out. Actually, that one that got the highest score ever within nature and biodiversity. And these were the activities that they were including. So these should be, at least if you are doing such project, quite relevant. And some of them might seem a little bit too much. For example, what was it that I sort of like information evenings with reading or movie theme. I have really hard to see how they carry out those projects in reality. Or a photography exhibition, quite lovely. But as you see, this is activities that should spark inspiration rather than maybe than educate. And I think that it's important to target all groups in society. There are people that learn a lot better from watching or like in practical terms, reading something or discussing a movie that is related somehow to these wetlands that they are establishing in the Netherlands. Or the project movie, for example, if you want to target kids or younger people, of course, you cannot trust that they will get onto your website or read your newsletter. You need a social media exposure. You need to even perhaps develop an app, a game, which they can play where they learn something. Kids have a lot of time, and I'm sure that they would pick up. If it's recommended through schools or study visits, they would pick it up and actually use it and learn something. So use your imagination as much as possible and actually maximize the not the number, but the quality of the communication and dissemination activities, because here is something where you can win lots of points if you have a credible strategy for communicating the project towards the public, citizens, and the local NGOs. It's possible to also have some kind of knowledge workshops they included. That is targeted towards local NGOs to get their experience already in the beginning of the project. So to make them feel that they're participating in the project at least. And if they're willing to, they should also participate in the project. And also when you're writing these activities or when you describe them, you should consider that some of the actions should continue also after the LIFE project. I mean, for example, the web page has to be online, 5 years in life or 4 years? Now I got a bit uncertain. But it's, search the application guide and you'll find it. And the information boards, they should be available after 2. Perhaps if you're establishing a larger area, you would probably have a small museum or a visitor center. That could be a cafe, which continues keeping some of the information and informs visitors about the result of the project. Quite advanced, but useful. We will jump further to 52. To summarize the whole approach, it is important, if not necessary. I told you that fancy pictures of the strategy is to recommend, but also you need to match the different activities to different target groups, and this can be done very easily by, as I've shown here, making a very simple just table or picture of how the different activities or which the different activities are, how they are connecting or associated to a specific target group. You can, of course, have much more and better specified target groups. This is just an example. But some sort of figure that connects somehow the different activities, their purpose, and the different target groups is very useful to make the evaluator quickly understand who you want to target and how you want to target the specific group, because they might very well be from a specific sector themselves, and they are interested just in that sector because they can kind of live the project that way. They were thinking, what if I was a municipality in the neighboring region? How would I consider this? And they should be able to find themselves here and kind of imagine that if they were sitting in that position still, or if they're still sitting there perhaps, how would I approach this problem? That is important. Okay. Also, yes, some of you, I know, we were discussing it already on Tuesday, the transnationality potential or the transnationality of the project. As I said from the beginning, if you open evaluation guide, page 15, you see that there is no minimum pass score for transnationality. That means it's not that important. You can get maximum 5 points if you write something nice about green procurement also. So this is, as you understand, in comparison to other areas, an area that you should not invest too much effort or too much energy or stress into. I think that, again, I wanted to add that there, in your case for Lithuania, there is no necessity in terms of budget division that you get. I told you about national allocation of the life budget to different countries. If you're a Swede, you want the transnationality because it provides you a larger budget to apply from and a better chance to get your proposal approved. But in your case, this is not as important. So instead, like always, I advise you to look back onto the environmental problem and then start thinking, does the cooperation have an international character? Is the problem of international character, and does it require cooperation across borders? Also, in the evaluation criteria, they will look at, do you have partners from different countries? This already makes it transnational. So say that if you're based in the north of Lithuania and the neighboring and the Latvian municipality on the other side might be connected somehow to the same problem, well, then perhaps I'm sure that you know the guys on the other side of the border. Ask them if they want to be an associated partner or somehow sit in a reference group on this. And then you already have transnational character. It doesn't need to be so complicated. Also, then it would perhaps be possible to carry out an action across the border to Latvia. Who knows? Or Poland, or Kaliningrad. I don't know. Do that. It should work. I think Russia is associated partner of this program. Either way, if you want to cooperate with Kaliningrad, let me know and I will check, or the rest of Russia, I will check if it's possible. And then finally, does it add any value to the European context if you take this transnational approach? If you see, if there, for example, if there is no, as Mindaugas said, that if the legislation in another country is problematic to apply your solution, then there is a transnational value of working with another country. If there is no legislation, as you can see, that is problematic, then perhaps there is no added value with this transnational approach. If people in the rest of Europe are interested in the solution, they will read about it, for example, in a professional magazine, come to you, make a study visit, and then replicate it back home. So if you want to motivate the transnational potential of the project, then look back at the EU-wide directives, regulations, and strategies. Always the most important thing, and that's also the connection to the program. Local specific related challenges. If you see that there are local challenges that are similar in somewhere in Spain and in the middle of Latvia, then you can motivate it, and you can motivate that you need this transnationality aspect. If the foreign partners, as we have said, if you have a foreign university, as in my example, that are better suited to carry out some dissemination or experimental monitoring, then perhaps it's better. For example, if you want to arrange this workshop in Germany, let the Germans do it. Then you save the CO2 costs of going there yourself with too many people and too much material. And then it could of course be motivated based on the cross-border cooperation. For example, if you have a common water basin, the Baltic Sea, for example, if you're doing a project connected to the Baltic Sea, it is relevant to work with neighboring countries in carrying out, at least within a reference group. And then, now Austria, by the way, I know that I am 5 minutes over what I said that I would speak, but on the other hand, I've answered the questions that came up so far. most of them at least in the presentation. So I'm soon ready. F actions, project management and reporting planning. There is not too much to say. A very common question is, how many % of the total budget that should be allocated for project management activities, for F activities, actions. And this is different from different programs. It is between 5 to 9% usually in life. Depends on how many partners you have, how complex actions you have, and so on. But no more than 10% should be required for carrying out the project in a good way, even if you subcontract a consultant for helping with reporting and so on. Always one thing that we all do in the beginning wrong is to plan not sufficient time for meeting each other. The coordination is the key to success of the project, because this means communication, less fights, and less delays if you speak to each other on a regular basis. So plan in sufficient times for the coordination and meetings. Also, pay attention to make a very clear structure of the management responsibilities. They will actually ask you to include management structure, basically a hierarchy. And I will get back to you in the next slide, the final slide, with one examples. And then as a minimum, last time I got this question on whether how many trips to Brussels you should include. And I said you can actually from the beginning already include 1 trip every year, plus the first trip when you do the contract negotiation or contract signing to Brussels. But the minimum that is required by the application guide is 1 trip in the beginning. But then it's realistic that you travel about once a year afterwards. In any case, when you go, if your proposal is approved, you will go into a revision phase with the life staff, and then they will just tell you how many meetings and how many trips you should include, and then they can change the budget based on that. Remembering the reporting. Yeah, of course. Reporting also, again, this is something that might change in the revision phase, but keep this in mind. In Form C2, progress reports should be submitted at least every 18 months, so indicate them every 18th month in your proposal. Good to know is that the first pre-financing will come upon signing of the grant agreement, and as soon as you have gotten the bank guarantee, then they will send you the first money. The second grant financing is sent to you when you send a midterm report, which will be about the middle of the project. Surprise, surprise. The third pre-financing, if possible, will be sent upon the second midterm report, but this only applies to projects that are longer than 4 years. And then the final report you send in with a payment request for the rest of the co-financing that you have asked for, and then you get within 3 months the final payment. An example you can see for a project of 4.5 years. This is quite realistic setup. Please have a look at that. But again, it might change. And then finally, I think, no, not really. One more slide after this. Possible management structure. You usually have a project steering group or steering committee that where you collect like decision makers from the different beneficiaries, different partners in one group. This is supposed to be the parliament, basically, that can pass larger decisions. But on top of this, you have a project management group, which runs the daily operations of the project and makes most decisions. But you can regulate which decisions that need to be taken up in the steering group or steering committee. And the names of these groups are not decided by life. You can call them whatever you want as long as it's clear what they're doing. You might also have a supervision group that is responsible for procurement and expertise. They can subcontract different parties, for example, for the reporting in EU affairs. There might be a monitoring group that is responsible for the C actions. This should be headed by the partner that is responsible for C actions. Could be a communication group that is responsible for the communication if the project manager doesn't want to do that. And there's usually a networking or reference group that coordinates the different organizations and also external organizations outside the consortium to discuss new experiments and so on. And you can also include other work groups. This is very much up to you. And this is where an experienced consultant could help you too in what works and what does not work so good. But I'm sure that you have carried out projects before of this scale and base your experiences on that, basically. As long as you have a realistic, clear structure, this will not be a problem in the e-evaluation. And then finally, looking into a full project and how you could call it, basically. A could be construction of foundation. Basically, have a look at this yourself because we are at the last slide for today, and I will start answering the questions in the meantime so that we have time to answer the questions until 11. But this is a hypothetical setup of a project, although it's very simple and does not take up all the aspects that I've been speaking about today. But here at least you can also compare a bit what the deliverable and the milestone is. Looking at the questions then, there come quite a few. If I navigate. Okay, here we go. Should we have deliverables per each action? Yes, at least one deliverable per each action. I would advise that it's one deliverable per each action. There is no added value for anyone to include millions of deliverables per each action because every deliverable you also have to deliver if your case officer decides to put it into the, or project officer decides to put it into the grant agreement. And it's kind of pain in the ass to report a life project and therefore well, keep it on a minimum, and otherwise they will bring this up in the revision phase that you might need to deliver a bit more. And 2 from Judita. Should after lifetime be included into submitting life proposal or at the end of the project after its implementation? Well, you have to describe in general terms the after life plan in the proposal, but you are preparing a full after life plan during the course of the project. Hope this answers your question. Next one is deliverables. During action, we have some management plans produced and approved by environmental authorities. Is that a deliverable? But we may have several hundred of them. Should we send all of them to Brussels? No, please. Save us all that. Now, in that case, if it's the management plans, there must be some that are more important than others. Maybe you can bring out 1 or 2 of them and use as deliverables. Take the more important ones, or if you have any collecting documents of many, when you reach a certain point that now we have enough management plans approved to carry out this and this, or the activity X, and put that in as a milestone and then a deliverable, that would be sufficient. And milestone you can call, for example, operational ability, and deliverable a set of management plans. I think that would be reasonable, but don't overdo it. Project milestones. If activity is being implemented in 3 years with certain intermediate milestones at the end of each year, should we define 1 milestone at the end of activity or define 3 milestones subdivided each year? Oh, no, it's it's enough to, you should not subdivide it. That makes it complicated only. Keep it as simple as possible. So one milestone at the end of activity. Especially if every milestone regards the same thing, that it's number like waste in some way. If they're very different milestones, then sure, you might have 2 or 3, but in this case, as I interpret it, you have either three very similar subdivided milestones or one compiled, then used to combine. It will be easier. Good. So yeah, keep it easy and understandable for the evaluator. Next one, in thematic priorities, there is no forest establishment activities, but in indicators we do have. Does forest establishment meet priorities? I've not worked on any forest projects. Okay, I'll have to get back to you on that question. I have your email. I can send it also so everyone gets access to it, but I have to look into the priorities. I am honestly not sure. We have not even reviewed a project within forest establishment, but I imagine that it could fall under nature and biodiversity. But I'll get back to you on this question. Forest certification, can we include such costs as indicators sustainably managed? Such costs as there are indicators sustainably managed forest areas. Yeah, that can be. That should be no problem, I think. But I think that I would need to call the Brussels people to get that question answered, or to some case officer, because they have experience from all different fields and all kinds of proposals. So let me get back to you, Mindaugas, on these two questions. Okay, do we have any more questions? Come on, don't be shy. Better now than going around on your vacation and think about it eternally. Even if it's a hard question, I will be able to answer it until tomorrow, so that you don't need to lay sleepless on your vacation. Oh, doesn't seem to be too much. Yeah, then, well, do you want to come in also? And please answer the poll. We're very happy to see if you're satisfied or not.
Yes, please, everybody, use polls to say if you like the seminar and if you have received the answers to your questions. And here we got a new question from Mindaugas, so Henrik, you can reply to it. We still have a few minutes.
Yep, of course. Will do. I just got a little bit curious about Mindaugas, I guess that you have been looking into application guide under the thematic priority for resource efficiency, including soil and forests. On page 26, there is a full section on forests. Yeah, I can look into that, but since you know your context and problem a lot better than I do, without knowing anything about your project, you should, I would suggest you to read there first of all, and if you have any questions that you want me to follow up with Brussels on that, we will. Either way, I'll look into it. It's interesting. Forest is also a big topic for Sweden. So, was previously, which specific actions should be included in application for close to market projects. Well, as I said, I think that the application guide provides quite good input to this. But yes, that kind of activities that you would normally put into a business plan, or it could be investment planning, for example, you could put in here. I think the difference is that traditionally life projects are run to a large extent by public authorities and NGOs and basically non-commercial actors. But in the later years, and especially when this circular economy focus has been bigger and bigger, the LIFE program wants to attract more commercial actors. And to do that, they have involved a section called Close to Market Solutions to make it more, basically, well, make it easier for companies to go in and get paid for things that they would otherwise have to pay for themselves that are not normally part of a LIFE project, for example, the business plan preparation or investment planning. So I would say, but it all, as you have probably read in the application guide, you need a solution that is almost past demonstration phase, that you can prove clearly, or during the course of the project, prove that it has a strong market uptake potential. So any study that legitimates that to help you bring this technology from your own test facility onto the market would be feasible to put in. Always in a LIFE or EU-funded project, only put in the activities that you would otherwise carry out with your own money. That's a quite good baseline or general rule, so to speak. Hope that answers your question sufficiently. Any other questions?
As we don't have any more questions for the moment, I wanted to inform everybody that we are still waiting for your responses concerning future technical consultation that we could provide to you. So please, those who have not answered to us, send your request, if you wish, your request concerning technical consultation that we could provide to you in August. Please inform to us by our email info@alifeprojekt.lt or writing to me aushra.smitiene@apva.lt. We are waiting. We are planning technical consultations currently, so it's very important to know how many of you are willing still to receive technical consultations for this year call.
And what is included in the technical consultation?
It will depend on the request of the applicants.
Okay.
And also our last webinar will be on 8th August together with Henrik, and
yep.
the title will be Administrative Forms and Project Outline. And I guess, Henrik, you will answer all other new questions related to other parts as well.
Yes, yes,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
But my recommendation would be until then because there is a reason why we have put this so late. If you look at the questions, these questions should probably be answered. If you get these questions answered in your proposal as soon as possible, then you will be able to send very concrete questions to me, I think, in August already. So put some focus on these questions. They will provide a good baseline to our August webinar. I'm looking forward for that. Then we'll cover the last aspects. And if there are any other aspects that you want me to emphasize more, for example, if you want me to, if you give me some more time to prepare about close to market, if that's still unclear, by August, let me know, and then I can include a few slides to that.
And please vote in polls tab if you have not done yet that. And also the video record of this webinar will be sent to every participant straight after the end of the webinar in about 10-15 minutes. We will put video records on our YouTube channel so everybody can watch it later on. Even those participants that have not registered to the webinar, for example, your partners or your other employees in your institution or organization that would be related to the project, they could watch video record of this webinar on YouTube later on.
Great.
So if we don't have any more questions, yeah, Henrik, you can finish the webinar then.
Okay. Well, well, it has been a pleasure to hold the webinar today. I hope that you have gotten some more information about especially the transferability and replicability. It's a tough part, but very important on this life triangle. I'll get back to the questions regarding forest, interesting topic. And again, always, if you want to submit any other questions or wishes, please send me an email or call. Always, as I said from the beginning, it's easier when you have a context to relate to answer your questions. And also, of course, if you need a review of a proposal or something, which is not covered by the technical consultations, which also will hold later on in August, let us know. And what's it more that I want to say? No, of course. Yeah, well, I wish you all a lovely vacation. I hope you get some vacation, despite writing life applications. Well, my recommendation is to turn off the phone and the computer and disappear for 2 or 3 weeks. It helps to clear up your mind, and you come back with a lot of positive energy in August again. So enjoy your vacation and your summer.
Okay.
And thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Henrik. And thanks everybody for participating in our webinar.
Yeah, thank you for participating.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure. Okay, bye, and see you on August 8th.
Yeah, see you in August.